Committing a breach of integrity is one of the quickest ways to bring yourself down after an excursion past your upper limit. Most popular integrity breaches are lies, broken agreements, and withheld truths. If you begin to focus your keen awareness on those three behaviors, you can make huge strides in transcending your upper limit and establish yourself in your zone of genius. Begin by understanding integrity on the most practical level of daily reality. Many people think of integrity as a moral issue, and of course, in part it is. However, there's a much more fundamental way to think of integrity. If you think of integrity as a physics issue instead of a moral one, you'll see that it belongs alongside unarguable forces such as gravity. Long before morality came into play, the original definition of integrity had to do with wholeness and completeness. To be in integrity meant you were whole and complete. To be out of integrity meant a breach in your wholeness has occurred. There was a gap in your completeness. Think of integrity as a physics issue. Thinking of integrity as a physics issue gives you a much more practical tool than regarding it simply as a moral issue. Morality is about good and bad, right and wrong, all of which are highly arguable. Physics is about did and didn't, not is and isn't. Let me give an example of how a physics approach to integrity can be valuable in daily life. Think of communication between people as a flow of energy. Think of your communication with your own inner depths in the same way. A breach of integrity stops the flow of energy, just as a pebble jammed in a garden hose stops the flow of water. Let's say you and I meet on the street. How are you doing, you ask? Fine, I say. You notice, though, that I look anything but fine. You notice that my mouth is downturned in a slight grimace and that a vertical worry brow is stretched in my brow. Now you have a choice. You can do the polite thing and overlook what you see, or you can make mention of what you notice by going to a deeper level of communication. Are you really fine? You look worried about something. By the way, I recommend that you break the surface like this only with people that you care about. I don't think it's worthwhile to go into this deeper level with the pizza guy or the meter maid. If you decide to break through the surface politeness by calling attention to my worried brow, you keep the flow of communication between us. If you don't, the flow stops. Here's why. The flow of communication includes your awareness of my furrowed brow. If you choose not to mention this awareness, the flow gets blocked. Pressure builds up as the flow looks for how to make a detour around the blockage. It's a pebble in the hose. I'm not saying it's a bad pebble. That would be a moral approach to the problem. It's just a force to be reckoned with. It's a gap in the completeness of the communication between us. That is from The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It's one of the books I'm pretty much coming to the end of, and I just thought that was something interesting because, you know, and when I say people, I'm talking about me too. I'm talking about me, probably mostly about me. People too many times attach morality to many things, right? But particularly food and exercise. Food has no moral value, right? There are no such thing as good foods. There are no such thing as bad foods, right? look at exercise. The deadlift. Oh, the deadlift is bad for your back. Kettlebells are bad for your back. Squatting's bad for your knees, right? Do these exercises. These exercises are good for you, right? How many times do we apply morality to foods and exercise? I'm deadlifting every single day for the last, I'm on officially lifting day 24, but video 23, episode 23. Deadlifting every day. If you tell a doctor that, they're probably going to think I'm crazy, that I'm going to hurt my back because the deadlift's bad for my back, right? Running is bad for your knees. You hear all this stuff, right? I think it was Dan John that said, no, the way you deadlift is bad for your back, right? The way you swing a kettlebell is bad for your back. The way you snatch a kettlebell is bad for your shoulder. The way you squat is bad for your knees. But in and of themselves, they are not good or bad, right? And, the deadlift is arguably, I would say, it's indispensable. Maybe not the barbell deadlift, but the deadlift itself is indispensable because this is a task that you must navigate every day for the rest of your life. Every single day for the rest of your life, you will need to be able to pick things up off the floor and heavy things without throwing your back out. It could be groceries. It could be playing with your kids or your grandkids. It can be any of that, right? So what does this lead to? What happens if we attach moral value to things like food? Food's a big one, right? Oh, man, I ate really bad today. Well, then you begin to beat yourself up. Oh, I'm such a loser. I can't believe I can't stay consistent with anything. Well, we start to really beat ourselves up about this. But there's no more moral value there, right? And so I just thought this was an interesting read here. He also says, where are we likely to find our integrity breaches? And he says, first place to look is in the subtle ways we lie to ourselves in order to conceal feelings we do not want to accept consciously. Right? So where are you out of integrity with yourself, with what you said you wanted? I've had to take a lot of self-reflection on this, things that I said I wanted around either my business or my strength training or my health or jiu-jitsu or whatever that was. Because remember, integrity is about wholeness, completeness, right? Think of the integrity of like glass, let's say, like a window, right? It's whole, it's complete until you send a baseball flying through it, right? And I love what Gray Cook says about stability. He said, I can't remember what, I think it was, I want to say it was, the first time I heard them say this, I think was like 2013. I was at this workshop's no longer available. It's called CKFMS. So it was like Certified Kettlebell Functional Movement Specialist. And I'll never forget what he said about stability. And what kind of ties into today's episode was, he said, stability is strength with integrity under load. Right? And this is what episode 21 was all about, the strength connection, right? The red string tactic. You see me placing my hands on my lower ribs and just trying to maintain that integrity, that wholeness, that completeness of my midsection, because that's what's going to make me stronger in the deadlift. That's what's going to make me stronger in my press, in snatches, in you name it, right? In my entire setup. Trying to maintain that integrity, right? So you see me trying not to break there. Right? And so that's what episode 21 was all about. So always keep in mind, stability is strength with integrity under load. All right? So, when it comes to your training and it comes to your eating, ask yourself, and I've had to ask myself these questions many times. I've had to ask myself these questions many times. Where do I feel out of integrity with myself? Right? An integrity breach occurs when we do something that separates us from that wholeness, from that completeness. Right? So if I said that I want to lose weight, but yet my actions are contrary to my actions, that's an integrity breach. Right? And what are lies that we tell ourselves? I've had so many consultations. I've worked with over now 1,200 people that have come through our gym. and many of our online program and all of our coaching online. I hear this so many times. Well, I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. Right? I don't need to have a six-pack. I'm not that out of shape. And I'm not saying you got to look like a bodybuilder. I'm not saying you got to have a six-pack. I mean, if that's something that you want to do, just like own it. Be honest with yourself, right? But don't project that out like, oh, well, I don't want to be that, or you start to judge, because we start to project our insecurities on other people. Oh, they're too skinny, they're too fat, they're whatever, right? They're too muscular. Oh, I don't want to look like that. So again, just think of what are the lies that you tell yourself, because it all usually starts there. It all starts there, right? If you say you don't want to, you don't want to be too skinny, or you don't want to lose weight, or you don't need to have a six-pack, but yet all you do is continue to admire people that have those things, that's an integrity breach, right? So to find these breaches and to restore wholeness, we basically need to get good at asking like these questions. There's like 5 questions that he has in here. Where do I feel out of integrity with myself? What is keeping me from feeling complete and whole? What important feelings am I not letting into my awareness? Where in my life am I not telling the truth? Where in my life have I not kept my promises? In my relationship with fill in the blank, what do I need to say or do to feel complete and whole? Right? So those are essentially the questions you want to ask yourself. Don't lie to yourself. I lied to myself for a very long time about the things that I wanted. I say I would want certain things, but yet my actions are opposite. Right? And so questions like this will lift you out of your limiting story that you've been living in. And we've all been living in a story. Right? Most of us have a story about why we don't access our genius, right? Which is ultimately that higher purpose, that thing you've been called to do, right? And we all have a story. I mentioned this in a blog post that I wrote called the Action Attraction Method, right? The Action Attraction Method, which is, basically your wounds, right? Like I mentioned, I talk about my wounds, right? So essentially the Action Attraction Method is figure out what your wound is. I talked about that wound in my story, right? The gift to the world, right? I wrote a blog piece on that, and I even mentioned it in the gold episode. So that wound, that experience that you have, it leads to a story, right? And that story that you tell yourself, you begin to have thoughts. You begin to establish a worldview, a belief system, right? And then that belief system leads to certain values, things that you value, right? So if you were to say, well, I want to lose the weight, or I want X, Y, or Z, like if you show me the things that you value, I can show you your results, right? If we took inventory of your actions, they would equal what you're getting, right? If I said I wanted to build, my goal here is 320 kilo deadlift. I'm not going to get that by this year, but that's my long-term goal, 320. And if I said I want to build 320 kilo deadlift, but I'm not deadlifting, or maybe deadlifting here and there, right? That's an integrity breach, right? So if you were to take all of my actions, they would equal what I'm getting. Would I get the 320 kilo deadlift? So your wound leads to the story that you tell yourself, that belief system. That leads to your thoughts. And then based on those thoughts, the way that you see the world, the way that you think, you begin to establish certain values. And then those values help you gain clarity and create a vision of the life that you want to create. You begin to visualize the body that you want, or the like. I cannot stop thinking about 320. 320 is just seared in my brain. I think about it every single day. I think about it all day long. I'm just wrapping up this deadlift session, and I'm already thinking about tomorrow's session. And I'm gonna keep this deadlift thing going. I'm gonna once I get to day 30, I'm gonna test out like a training max, which won't be a PR, but a training max. And I feel great. I feel amazing. I plan on keeping this going. I guess you would have to say, like, you have to become obsessed with the end result that you want. I think that's what Think and Grow Rich was about, right? That deepest desire. It almost has to become an absolute obsession, right? And so you got to be able to see that. You got to be able to have that vision. And I can't stop thinking about 320. I'm like obsessed with the deadlift. This is something that I will continue to train for the rest of my life. I won't be able to pull those big numbers, as we get older. It's just kind of the way things work, but I will be able to pull big numbers for myself. And so that vision leads to that aligned action, right? This is what I call the action attraction method. You got to get clear on what your wounds are, right? Start working towards getting your gold back. Work on the story that you're telling yourself. You're going to have to learn how to retell yourself a new story. This is something that we take our students through. Help them retell a new story, because that new story leads to different and new thoughts, elevated, higher thoughts. And then those thoughts, you set new values. And then based on those values, you can start to get clarity on the vision that you're trying to create, what the life that you want to be in. Create the integrity, create the wholeness, which is the aligned action attraction. Right? Once you begin to take aligned action, you're in integrity with the things that you say that you want, and then you're aligning that to the actions, you begin to attract the results that you want. You literally begin to attract those results that you want. All right? But it all starts on getting clear on that method, right? I'll drop the blog post in the description. You can check that out. Just know that your problem is not the problem, right? Not being able to lose the weight, not being able to build the muscle, getting in shape, like whatever other vague goal that we set for ourselves, that's actually not the problem. Like, what if I told you that wasn't the problem, right? The conflict is deeper. Like I told you, we got to go back to figure out what the emotional, whether psychological or physical wounds are. Again, this is what the whole kind of gold story, the whole gold episode was about. What are those wounds? What story have I been telling myself? What thoughts am I having? What values do I have right now? Because all that leads to the type of action or inaction that you're taking. Right? I've had several conversations. We had several students. I'll just give you a couple of examples. One of our students couldn't lose the weight no matter what. They said, air quotes, they said they were following the program. They weren't following the program, right? Because again, if we take inventory of your actions, they will equal what you're getting, right? So couldn't lose the weight, couldn't figure it out. Quote unquote, I'm doing it, not seeing the weight loss, frustration. As we began to sit down and talk and they began to trust us a little bit more and they began to open up to us, turns out that they were abused as a child, sexually abused, even raped. So they felt, well, if it's my fault, right? So usually what a lot of rape victims feel, it's my fault because of how I presented myself. So maybe if I just gain weight, if I look ugly, if I don't look presentable, no one will want to hurt me again. That once we got clear on that wound, we were able to break through and move forward. Another student would self-sabotage themselves. Like, I remember they said the pain, I remember asking them, we were trying to figure out why they weren't taking the action, why they weren't taking that aligned action. And they would sabotage themselves because the pain of gaining the weight back would be worse than staying where they were right now. Like, man, I've lost the weight before, but I've gained it all back, and it's just constant, like, up and down. And so right now, they're not taking aligned action because the pain of going through that again would be worse psychologically than to just stay where they're at. And that's tough. But here's the thing. We had to get clear on that so that way we could tell a new story, have new thoughts, establish new values, create the clarity and the vision that where we want to go, so that way we can then take aligned action and be in integrity with the things that we said that we wanted. Right? And here's the thing. That can be tough to do because, and that's what the big leap is all about, is that upper limit problem. Right? So these situations, these pains where we're at, it's what's familiar to us. Right? So once you've reached your capacity, i.e. your upper limit, to feel happy, to experience happiness and abundance and love and success, once you've reached the limit of that, you'll do something to destroy it. And you don't know why, right? You see it all the time. People start to lose weight and they go on eating binges for several days. Or you see people that see success in their work or whatever, and they go on a drinking binge or start doing like whatever. They see great success at work or whatever, and then they go home and they start a fight with their wife. Like you just see those are symptoms, and you can, if you start to pay attention and you bring this stuff into awareness, you can see people experiencing their upper limits. I've experienced them like so many damn times, and it's things that I'm still constantly working on. But here's the thing. That upper limit's never gonna go away. You have to work on that and expand and basically elevate that upper limit to where, like, let's say it's, level 10 is your upper limit. Well, you want to move it to like 12. That way you can get to 10. And then you want to move it to 14 so you can get to 12, right? So you're always just trying to expand that upper limit because, dude, people sabotage their good feelings, right? I.e. losing the weight, building the muscle, getting in shape, because those things make you feel good. Like when it just trips me out when people say, oh, well, I don't want to look like a bodybuilder, or I don't need to look like a fitness model, or I don't need to have a six pack. Those are lies. Those are lies to yourself, because here's the truth about those things. Again, I'm not saying that you have to have those things, because those aren't attached to who you are. Those are finite things, right? But here's the thing. Here's the truth. When you look better, when you look good, you feel good. When you look good, you feel good. You have more confidence. You walk different. You walk taller. Right? So those good feelings, if we've reached our capacity to feel good feelings, we will do something to sabotage that. Right? Because we're not comfortable with that success. And your focus, your goal from there is to elevate that upper limit and expand in abundance, success, and love. Right? So that's it, man. That's all I got. I just wanted to share that with you. Thought it was interesting. Interesting thing is it's interesting how all these things kind of come together, right? Like just everything around integrity and just experiences, book, like it was just really interesting. And I just I finished reading that a couple days ago, and I was like, that would be a good tie-in. Again, we just talked about connection and integrity of the core in the midsection, and just thought it was a good tie-in. So appreciate you watching, man. And let me know how you're liking the episodes. Drop me a comment below. Let me know where you've been out of integrity with yourself. What are the lies you've been telling yourself? Drop something in the comments below, and I'll also drop the blog post of the action attraction method in case you want to check that out. And I'll see you on the next episode. Peace.